Welcome to a giant hole in the ground that's full of stuff. Except none of that stuff is a flying machine. But I have built them, so this is just a video on the basics of them and how they work. Generally uses a lot of these, which are observers. So this is a project I didn't really start. Or I didn't finish. But yeah, observers. That's the main thing that makes them work. And also slime and honey blocks. So if you don't know much about slime and honey blocks, I do actually have a video on them. So if we go all the way over here, somewhere, there we go. You'll recognize this bit if you've seen that. But yeah, this is the slime and honey blocks. So I guess I'll actually reuse this. So you can push them and they'll grab blocks, right? But slime and honey won't stick to each other, even though they'll stick to other blocks. But as you can see, once we add too many blocks, which is 13, then it can't pull it, but if there's 12 it can. So you have to make sure there's no more than 12 total. But then we need a way to make them sort of automatically go off. So the way we do that is with observers. And if we go back over here, here's an observer. So, well, here's one. And when we update it by like placing a block behind it, you could also have a no block you set off. So lots of different things. Then you'll set it off. They also get set off if you push them with a piston. And that's because they've updated, because they've changed from being a block here to now a block here. So that counts as an update, and they'll sell off a piston. But you'll also notice when you push things with it, they don't sort of go out and then come back. They actually stay out, even though it's a sticky piston. And then only when you set it off again does the block get pulled back. So you can sort of move stuff one block forward by setting off the observer, or you can move it one block backwards. So here's the slime and honey demonstration. So if we combine our moving an observer to set off a piston, with the fact that observers and pistons both stick to the slime blocks or the honey blocks and can move, then we can do stuff like this, where this observer is aiming at the piston. So when we move both of them, it'll actually set the piston off. So if we press the button, you can see that when it moved, the piston gets set off, and when it pulls back, the piston gets set off again because this observer got set off both times. And that pushes these blocks out. But as you can see, the honey block didn't stick to the slime block, which is really useful. So that's how that works. So here's another thing about honey and slime blocks. This is kind of important. Power can go through a slime block, so this observer will power this piston, but it can't go through honey blocks, so this observer won't power this block and this piston, because honey blocks don't transfer redstone power like that. So if we press the button, as you can see, it gets pushed out, but this piston didn't go off, even though the thing with the observer moved. So that doesn't trigger, but this one does. There we go. And then it all pulls back. So finally, we get to the flying machine. And the flying machine essentially works where we have an observer here with this piston, and then they're stuck together with slime. And they push this slime, which is stuck to this observer and this piston. So when we set off this piston, these two will get pushed back to here. And that means the observer and the piston will be pushed back. But because they've moved, the observer will go off and the piston will go off. And that'll actually pull the slime blocks. So you'd get this happening like so. So again, the main thing you have to do is make sure that there's not more than 12 blocks in this chain of slime or this chain of slime, because then the pistons won't be able to push it. And you also don't want to stick this piston to this bit, or this piston to this bit. Now these can be slime instead of honey, because none of it is sliding against each other, but you might have a situation where some of it ends up going against each other, and then you'd need to use honey so that it doesn't interact. So you can actually see that on, it's not in this world, but I made an elevator, so if you search realistic elevator on my channel, there's a video of that, and that uses a bunch of flying machines together. So if we put them next to each other like this, then we can use honey, and then as long as we set them both off at the same time, they'll just go happily next to each other without interfering. And then you do the next one as slime. So yeah, I guess I'll update this. So a better way to do this, I think, would be a no block, because then you can power it to sell off the observer. And then we just need obsidian to stop it moving. So, go. There we go. So as you can see, one side is being pushed. That sets off the piston on the other side, which makes it pull that side back. And then we just use obsidian to stop it. And then we can also put an O block here to set it off. And it'll carry on going until it's stopped by obsidian or having too many blocks. Obsidian's useful because the slime and the honey won't stick to it. So it's a good block for that. And you can also power an O block to set it off like this. And that means you can sort of make stuff go backwards and forwards. So one thing you could do with this is if I just add a couple more blocks here. And then a rail. That is kind of aiming in an awkward direction, isn't it? So if we aim it this direction and we have a minecart, then if I just add some way for me to set off the note block, so I'll use a button, get in the minecart, then if I press this, I can now travel in this flying machine without doing anything AFK, which is pretty cool. We do need to move that note block now though, or even swap it for something else, but yeah. So this is kind of the basics of them, but I think one other thing I'll add is if I extend these honey blocks and I'll add another observer and piston, then we can actually sort of chain more of them together. So one thing that I do with this, I'll use honey because it's going to end up sliding up against itself. So what I've done here is I've just added another set of sticky blocks with an observer and a piston, and then I can push this normal block, or I could push like a chain of slime or something. So we'll pay respects with an F. It's the wrong way around, but shut up. So what will happen is this first flying machine will go forward, and then this piston and this piston will get set off. So the first flying machine will be pulled and it will go off to infinity, same as before. Except this piston also goes off, which will push this bit forward, and then when it's going backwards, it'll also pull it back, and then this piston will also go off, which will push and do this one, and you can actually do that infinitely. So if I added another piston here, then I could then do another set of things that get pulled, like that. So yeah, let's actually just set this off and watch it go. So I have actually mucked up being able to do it from here, so what we'll use is a piston. And pistons are useful for setting it off because a piston that's extended can't be pulled by slime blocks, so it won't stick to it. So that's a way we can set them off as well, because it'll set off the observer. So we go bam. And that didn't actually work. Oh yeah, sorry, that's because this needs to be a block forward. So if I make this move block forward, that's not moving a block forward. There we go. So now that all that stuff has moved forward, and then we'll just do that. And as you can see, it all moves forward. And then if we set this off, yeah, that's not going to set it off. It moved a block forward, mate. So there we go. So you can see all of those getting pushed in a chain, and then they'll stop when it hits the obsidian. But then we also have, if we move this backwards again, then everything is going to be pulled because every piston will get set off and it can push and pull. So there you go. You got a giant chain of blocks. So I'm not saying I was using that to build this 100 by 100 door over here, but you could chain them together and make them slide against each other in a door that may be 100 by 100. This isn't finished, but that might be something you can possibly do. So again, we're just pushing sticky blocks attached to observers and sticky pistons, and then when they move, the observer gets set off, which will move blocks. So like that, and then the second one got set off. Then this one can get set off and push all of those, and finally, there we go. Just setting stuff off in a row means you can move insanely large things if you chain all these together. You know, like a 100 by 100 door, say. Alright, hope you understand flying machines better. I've been Idendied, and this is Minecraft.